Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are excited to be able to speak to you more about how to learn together, work together, and how learning development can ignite the employee engagement. This is going to be a panel discussion with ArcelorMittal. In this webinar, we hope to be able to really discuss three key points. First of all, how work has changed in what we call this new never normal environment. Second of all, what are the most effective and easy to implement methods to strengthen the engagement of your teams? And number three, how to rethink your learning strategies in an innovative way to effectively respond to this new world. I'm excited to be joined by Stacy and Vincent, who will walk us through their experiences in dealing with the constant flow of change we have collectively experienced and how employee engagement is key to solving these challenges. Stacy, Vincent, I will let you introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Stacy. I have been with ArcelorMittal for about 3.5 years. I'm originally from the United States and I call myself kind of a learning evangelist or revolutionary because I'm very passionate about making it very personal and impactful, and thrilled to be joining everyone this evening to share some of the experiences that we've had in the last few years. Vincent?
Hi everyone, very pleased to be with you today. I'm 20 years in the company and starting from a background in psychology and industrial psychology. And my path has gone through different projects in the field of training mostly, and joining the ArcelorMittal University a few years ago and supporting the business in all learning strategies. And very pleased to be with you to exchange.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Stacy. And I'm Clement Duran. I am the manager for the CrossKnowledge sales teams, part of YD Professional Learning in the Americas. I've been with the organization for 10 years, and I'm very eager to be able to help ArcelorMittal share with you their best success factors in dealing with employee engagement. Before we get started, we thought it might be helpful to provide a short introduction to both organizations, starting with CrossKnowledge and then proceeding with ArcelorMittal. For those of you who are not as familiar with CrossKnowledge, we are part of YD, a global player in research and education with the mission to unlock the full potential of people through the development of skill and knowledge that they need to succeed. CrossKnowledge partners with organizations around the world, like ArcelorMittal, and from all industries to empower their employees into a skilled workforce that can navigate the future successfully. We directly support our clients in building effective learning experiences while driving impact and transformation. We also conduct research, which we publish through webinars, ebooks, and white papers on the major trends that we observe in the learning development industry. Vincent, I'll pass it over to you for the introduction to ArcelorMittal.
Yeah, for those who don't know ArcelorMittal, we are a key leader in steel and mining, present in all continents and 155 countries for the customers. We are very active in the creation of new products for all markets, including automotive, construction, packaging, energy, transportation, and others. We are supported by numerous R&D centers with strong focus on creating new products and, even more importantly, to make the steel production more and more sustainable. And we have a certain objective that Stacy will mention now.
Yes, I would say a shout out if you're joining from North America, where we are the largest steel producer, and also in South America. Part of producing steel is that we are very energy intensive endeavor, but we are very committed to leading our industry's efforts to decarbonize and be part of the solution that we've targeted to reach net zero by 2050. But in addition to that, at our group, we've also targeted reducing our CO2 emissions by 25% by 2030, and in our European operations by 35% by 2030. And some very exciting projects going on in some of the joint ventures that we are also a part of. So for example, in Alabama, we're a part of ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel in Calvert, and they also have some large decarbonization, as well as ArcelorMittal Nippon Steel in India, which is on track to become one of the largest steel producing locations in the world, and the largest green energy project that's going on in the world that combines hydro, solar, and wind technology. So there's lots of interesting things going on behind the scenes, if you will, supporting our steel industry around energy and green steel.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Vincent. So we thought, before we really jump into the different questions for the two of you, that it would be helpful to essentially explain what we mean by the new never normal environment and how this has been felt and lived through by all of us. So for those of you who are not familiar with that term, the new never normal really is meant to represent all the disruption that we've been experiencing for the past several years. As you know, that disruption has been near constant between the ongoing effects of the pandemic to the natural devastations created by climate change, to the impact of war in Europe. We as individuals, as members of organizations, and as members of communities have had to constantly adapt and at times reset our expectations. And that is what we mean by the new normal. And as anybody can expect, this stressful period has created ramifications and impacts within the workplace and within our expectations of the workplace, leading us to realize that the modern workforce has evolved. Employees have new expectations for the workplace and understand their value and place within the organization and the way that has changed as well. In view of these realities, organizations like ours at Whitey and like that of ArcelorMittal have had to transform to adapt these changes at all levels, including, of course, at the learning development level. The outcome of these changes are, that there's been direct impacts on talent management and learning. These global disruptions are clearly challenging employees' resiliency to stay invested in the company's stakes and missions, which also translates into major challenges regarding retention and attracting talent. Overall, I think we can all agree that organizations are really having to rethink how employees stay connected to one another, how employees engage with their organization overall, and how this impacts business outcomes and performance. If we look at some interesting data, you'll see that globally, employee engagement is really a huge concern. Overall, Gallup is reporting that only 21% of the global workforce is currently identifying as engaged at work. When we look at that percentage across North America, we're at 33% as far as employee engagement, and that is the highest in the world. For our European colleagues, that number drops down to 14%, the lowest rate in the world. Overall, Gallup today estimates that the amount of money that has been lost to disengagement in the past year alone amounts to $7.8 trillion, an enormous figure. What does this mean for us, in our industry? Well, it means that, of course, this has consequences on our organizations, and it definitely increases the responsibilities that learning development departments and functions have to support. Millions have left their jobs to start new careers and pursue other opportunities. Millions have become more disengaged from their jobs and need a new motivation to go above and beyond in their day-to-day responsibilities. We're seeing, of course, the effects of the Great Resignation, the topic that everybody has been discussing. And overall, when sampling different organizations, there is a great sense of uncertainty, whether it relates to the economy and to everybody's futures. We also know that 94% of employees would stay longer at a company if the company invested in their career development. What this means is that clearly learning development is part of the solution and one of the most effective ways to improve engagement, to retain talent, and to prepare organizations for the challenges to come. We designed this panel discussion to give you a better understanding of how ArcelorMittal's learning development team has been working through these very real challenges and what they have done to set up the organization for success in this new never normal. I'm going to help walk Vincent and Stacy through a series of questions. If you have any of your own questions that come up based on what you're hearing, please feel free to put them in the chat. We will try to answer them as they come. We also will keep about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the webinar to be able to go over any questions that have been left unanswered. So with that in mind, Stacy, Vincent, how would you say that ArcelorMittal has experienced this new normal?
Well, I think in true learning fashion, we've been learning a lot. We looked at this as the changes that were occurring throughout this as opportunities to continue to develop and grow as an organization. We're a very cyclical organization. The industry as a whole is a very cyclical industry that has lots of ups and downs. So I would say we have a very resilient group of employees. But it's been a series of incidents, not just the pandemic, which changed, but we also have a very large plant in Ukraine. So obviously we've had a series of, I think, probably much greater things that we've had to been dealing with recently. But let's say, first of all, when we first, just going a few years back, we are a steel company, very traditional in nature. Most of the learning that was happening was very face-to-face and to be honest, very compliance-driven. The language that people were using was that we spent time in training. And we've been trying to shift that perception to more of a you invest time in learning. That's a big shift, you know, from that kind of compliance-driven culture to a learning culture. And really, we're still working towards creating a community of learning and sharing knowledge and communities of practice, which I think is where the next step for us to really grow, to be more, to connect more to performance. But in the very first instance, the first thing that we noticed, and we tried to do intentionally, was this jump. We didn't want some of the natural momentum of moving into a virtual space to go immediately back to you know, we wanted to be able to use that where it was appropriate to do so, where there was opportunities for digital learning. Those first instances opened the door to be able to do more with virtual, blended, synchronous, asynchronous. Then that was probably seen before it really wasn't necessary, and people's skill sets out there were a very diverse organization, very distributed. We're not a big team at corporate commanding and controlling. So we have taken this opportunity to grow that network. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But the first instance that we saw was how everybody had to come together in our virtual, what we call our virtual campus. And you can see that we've taken some consistent effort, not just that immediate bump, to consistently grow. We've actually skinnied down our total number of employees. So as a percentage, we've gone considerably more than that 50%. And then the learners that we have are doing more while they're there. And then we can talk about a little bit more in a little while why we've seen such huge growth in the number of active courses that we've seen as well. Vincent, you probably want to add as well to.
Yeah, I will just second you on the fact that we've seen a lot of increase in the practices of digital learning, although during the years before the pandemic, we were developing that already quite fast. But we got a kind of additional boost, and I was quite surprised by the resilience of our people and how quick they adapted to that. And I think it was the use of remote learning in that situation was really kind of a very positive side effect of the situation. And also that was very helpful in the sense that some people are in locations where they don't have an easy access to classroom training. So they really didn't have any other alternative, and having a boost of the offer of what was available to them was extremely beneficial to them, and they were like extremely happy to see more learning opportunities coming to them compared to a period where they barely have anything easily available to them. So I think we got some positive impacts, although the period was a difficult one for everyone, for sure.
Yeah, and building on that, I would say the corporate university that existed before was much more place-based and more formal. You know, it was a place that people came for leadership programs, upon nomination. What we tried to do during this period was really democratize learning and make sure that everyone had access to this community of learning. And we did that also by creating a calendar of weekly events every Wednesday, actually at 3 p.m. Central Europe time, because Vincent and I are based in Luxembourg in Europe, where our corporate headquarters are. So we tried to pick a time that would kind of work across all of the time zones that we operate in, from India to North and South America. And we do these regular events, and we do some special events as well that really have helped us to build this community and build this sense of regularity and connection. Many of these special events also feature very senior leaders. You can see our CEO, Aditya Mittal, there. And that's really helped bring people together. They would not have had access to some of those senior leaders from all around our different business segments prior to starting some of these initiatives. And as you can see, we now have quite a few in attendance. A good percentage of all of our employees, of our knowledge workers, have now taken part in some of these. I see a question that just came in, and I really appreciate that. Shall we try to answer that now? So, yeah. What L&D initiatives are in place for high potential African American leaders to move into their next leadership role? In fact, I think all diversity in our company is really important. We have locations all around the world. And not just in North America and South America. People of all different have opportunities to be nominated for our leadership programs. And locally, there are also additionally many other leadership programs on the ground besides the ones at group level. Around the world, we have, ArcelorMittal is the largest investor in Liberia, where we have major new investments going in around the port and operations there. And we have a large operations also in South Africa, joint ventures throughout Morocco and other places. So we try to make sure that all of our employees have access to all of the opportunities to grow around all of the areas that we're in. And in fact, as we came into this period, we were actually able to advocate and work with one of our partners. We don't want English to be the barrier for anyone as well, to make sure that everyone is included wherever they're at. English is the company language, but not everyone had equal access to English language learning. But now we're really grateful we were able to roll that out just earlier this year and make sure that everyone has access to English language learning and live classes every month in order to keep that possibility of entering other leadership roles open to all. So that was one of the areas that we have been able to try and make sure that we're being inclusive across. I think we have operation and employees in 60 different countries, so we want to focus on all of the diversity that includes. I hope that.
I think that, yeah, and I think diversity is part of our DNA from the very beginning. We are such a diverse organization, a mix of very different countries. And when we collaborate between countries, we have twinning programs between plants. And that diversity of approaches is extremely it's a big benefit for everyone.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for your question, David. If I would propose we move up to maybe the next question around engagement, and I know we have a later section which comes back to what our summit is doing with local and regional employees. For this next question, I wanted to bring it back to, today, as you mentioned, Stacey, your corporate university has had to shift to make adjustments based on this new reality. I wanted to see if you could walk us through, two questions. First of all, how are you making learning more relevant today, and how you're keeping your employees engaged around learning? And then overall, how would you say that you're able to connect learning to organizational purpose, which is really key to keeping employees motivated and invested in the company's mission?
I'm going to go ahead and answer the first question, and then I'll ask Vincent to talk a little bit about the way that we're working with our network of super users to answer the second question. So one of the first things that, right around the time that the pandemic started, actually, we also happened to have been working to relaunch a new competency framework. We'd always had one, but it didn't have some of the graphic assets and the like communication plan and some other initiatives were never really attached to it. I would say it was something that kind of statically stood out there that we knew existed, but we didn't really do anything in a way that programmed to it, if you will. So one of the things that we did was we worked very closely with communications and our leadership development folks to kind of put a face, a look, and a feel with these graphics and little posters that we created. There's a set of 10 competencies and capabilities, and we kind of tried to bring that to life with our programming. So now if you go to the virtual campus, all of our content, whether it's ebooks and audiobooks or the CrossKnowledge skill paths or the S4K summaries, or some of those are some of our content partners, everything is curated to these competencies and capabilities, as well as those live sessions every month. We make sure that everybody understands why this topic is being presented and why it's important. And even more so, one of the sessions that we do every month is with a senior leader. I think we've gotten nearly all of the members of our management committee to participate at this point, and making it really personal. Like, what does strategic planning actually look like in practice by somebody who is in charge of, our chief transformation officer, so to speak? What does innovation look like from our head of global R&D, and talk about their personal stories? So really, again, creating a sense of community is you have to have your leaders also setting a good example and talking about making the learning personal to them. And I think that has really been a really valuable part. People want to tune in and hear the stories. And in fact, we now hear that new employees are considering these sessions kind of like mandatory learning to get a feel of what our company does and why it does it and what's important about how we do it. So, and Vincent, I think you can probably talk a little bit more about how we get to know those local needs and how they connect to the organizational purpose on a more regional way.
Yeah, I think we will come to that part shortly after, but just to add on what Stacey just said, I think what is crucial is to establish a human relation, which is a paradox, because when you talk about digital learning, you can indeed deploy to thousands of people some programs. But it's very important to keep good contact with people during those weekly sessions, and to have a kind of conversation going on, even with our senior people. And that's probably, for some people, that's probably the first time they were able to connect with the CEO, maybe not necessarily from the same country they are in, but just to establish this contact is something that people are extremely happy with, and they find always extremely useful to them to get insights from people and to get a very authentic testimonial from them. That's also part of the I would say requirement that we give to our guest speakers, to be really down to earth and to provide return of experience. That's absolutely good to engage learners, because they know when they come to the session they will have a lot of takeaways that will bring back to their team, and that's something we love to do.
Well, building on what you and Steve have just shared, Vincent, and on wanting to establish that human connection in a digital world, how would you say that ArcelorMittal has been able to really adapt the kind of learning experiences that you've made available to employees to regional and local needs?
I think it's so. I think we're going to speak about our network of super users, but before that, I would say it's a very subtle mix of standardizing and giving freedom to the local units to adapt whatever they need to adapt to match the local learning culture. So we started to look at some global platforms, tools, contents that we can serve to all employees and all the learning and development teams, and try to have a limited number of tools that we believe are good enough or are very good tools that can be used to produce content, to deliver it, and the platforms to share and deploy those training elements, and to train our L&D community on the use of those tools. So that's for the standardization part, and all the customization is more on the local side and also within the segments, how to use those tools once the people get empowered to solve learning challenges. So our mission at global level here is to really take care of this network of roughly 50 plus 60 people in all countries, where we want to develop their skills on learning design, on video editing, on graphic design, trying to insource as much as possible, because we realize that getting always externally is not always a good solution, because you don't necessarily have a good grasp on maintenance of learning materials. So our ambition with this super users network is to build internal capability in all the aspects of learning design. So from marketing, designing, deploying, monitoring, and also monitoring the business outcomes, which is very important. So here on that slide, you can see one of the tools we've used. So this is a learning path on the CrossKnowledge platform, where we provide access to learning materials to this community. We start by reasserting what's the role of the super users, how they are going to support our company. And we provide access to the academy, to some various information channels. We have a Yammer group, we have the teams. We also develop live sessions in video, in webinars. We record all the webinars and we put that in the stream channel so they have access. Because one thing to understand is that we are so big that we have new L&D people joining every month nearly. So it's not like we can do a one-off program and okay, thank you very much, everything is done. We have to constantly support newcomers in HR who want to come and bring new ideas as well from what they got in their previous job. So we have to embark them in a journey, and we need tools to support them. It's also a very good platform to share best practices and to highlight the good projects which are done in Canada. How can they be implemented maybe in a slightly different way in Belgium or in Liberia? So that's also the added value of a centrally coordinated team who can, it's a small team, it's 6 people, but we are there to support the overall improvement of the learning function in ArcelorMittal. and this network is crucial in getting to the next level in terms of learning.
I would just re-emphasize again that this is not a network of people who report to us. These are people who are truly out in the business, and not all in HR. I think originally that's but now we have folks all over different functions who understand the role that the platform, the content, the tools can play in the business. So it's really been, and let me just remind you back to that earlier slide. This is the reason why we've gone from, roughly 150 active courses to, over 1,300 active courses, because that's not some courses that we did add to the catalog, but that was probably only about 200 of those are ones that we, quote, bought in. The rest we've been building ourselves. And by we, I don't mean Vincent and I, although we've done some, but it's the majority are the folks out in the field who are designing to their local needs in their local languages and really aligned to the business needs there.
Thank you, Stacey. And I can see that there are questions that are starting to kind of pile up in both the Q&A and the attendee chat. I think what we may want to do is just, we've missed a few. I would propose we come back to them during the Q&A, especially the ones relating back to the weekly.
I might answer a couple of the first ones in the next, and in the answer to the next question. So
perfect. Well, so the next question I think is going to, as you said, invite some of your own responses to these. Could you share with us some of the success factors that you have been able to use to create a sense of connection within your workforce?
I'm nervous to call it success factors because I feel like it's certain things are things that we've been learning ourselves along the way that may not have been naturally in our wheelhouse, but are now becoming much more important. And I would say the first one is probably an answer to Tahiti's question, which is how are we notifying people about events? And I would say one of the things that we've had to really do is be much more proactive. When you're creating a sense of community, bringing people together, it's important to meet learners where they are. And the answer is, with 180,000 employees, the learners are kind of everywhere all at once in lots of different places. We're in a Microsoft environment, which has, and those tools have also been evolving and somewhat quickly over time. So we have had to really evolve with them and understand. And now we're about to take another evolution into Viva, where there's a lot of opportunities to become even more sophisticated in our, I guess, communication / marketing is an area that I guess maybe a lot of people in learning. If you're like me, I have a PhD in learning technologies. Nowhere in my curriculum did we talk about all of the tools that we now have to use on a daily basis in order just to get the word out. So frankly, we're constantly looking at how to do that well, how to do it in segmented ways. We do use kind of an email blast that we send out. That's fairly effective at driving attendance. We also use SharePoint. That's been getting more and more, and we keep that up to date, and we have our events listed there. We use Teams. I'm really interested in sharing. This is a group of people who have just come to this Teams voluntarily. We didn't automatically assign anyone into it. It now has 4,500 people in it. You can see, again, it's curated by those competencies and capabilities again, and strategic initiatives. And, we post in there, and we have dialogue going on in there as well. We use Yammer, or what is now Viva Engage. We use Stream, so yes to that. Are they recorded? Absolutely. And we put them in our Stream channel, which I believe is the most active one anywhere in the company. And this creates, and we now bring up new tools, like there's a new app in Company Communicator where we can message people directly. I could go on, but the reality of it is that we're learning more and more about how we can better meet learners where they are. And then I think we have a little surprise that we brought. We have a little bit of show and tell. Vincent, you want to talk about some of the ways that we really think it's important to make learning fun? We don't want learning to be seen as something that people dread.
Yeah, if we want to engage learner, we have to look at what is fun and mixing fun and serious things. That's one of the first thing we did. Was not so long ago. That was, I think, back in 2019 or 18 when we launched these amusing moments, our learning moments, with a kind of AMU, Astronomical University, if you get fun. So we get to use those kind of funny short extracts from movies, and the one you see on the left is the barber scene in The Great Dictator, and that's to speak about inspire trust, if you see what we mean here. And so the idea is to mix those funny things with some more serious stuff, and that was a big success, I have to say. People were really keen on discovering what's going to be the new video on the next week, etc. So it's also how to pace the learning experience and not deliver everything at once, but give some surprises and some special things. And in terms of special things, we have a video that we just released earlier this week for Halloween. So maybe we can go to the next slide and
give you a sample of what we,
Remember this strange lady wandering around in the Petrus building back in October 2021? It seems like the lady is back with more tricks and treats in her bag. Let's follow her in her quest for awesome Microsoft Office tips.
Windows plus E, open File Explorer. Windows and E.
Boom, right there.
Thank you very much. Control plus N, open a new window. Control N, a new window.
A new window, just like that.
Control plus mouse scroll wheel, change the size and appearance of file and folder icons.
Perfect. Nice. And what did it do?
You can hide it and like you can enter your desktop area fast.
Exactly. So when might that be useful?
If you have many windows open and you want very fast to go on your desktop to open some other applications.
Yes. Or if you happen to be in a shared office environment and people are walking past you, you don't want them to see what you're doing.
Perfect.
Nice. Do Windows H again.
Hello, my name is Daniel.
Nice.
It works perfectly.
Very nice.
Magic! And guess what? That will work in any application. So even applications that don't have emote. You look like a fun guy. Do you know what? Have you ever used Control W before?
No, never.
Would you like to try? Boom! Closed.
Nice to learn something today.
This is your trick. There you go. We're going to close it. Oh, and ta-da!
This is exactly what I needed.
Hey! Do you want to be on camera? You want to do one of the tricks?
Wow. Okay.
So it's Alt-Tab or Control-Tab, and then what happens?
Okay.
See what happens? You can between all the open programs you have. You can see them all right there.
I never tried this on my computer.
Try again. Isn't that great?
Yeah. Yep.
Well, thank you, Stacey and Nelson. I think that's a great example of how to make
enjoyed that.
learning. All right. Let's see if we move on to just the last question before we proceed to the Q&A. So, something that was striking to me as well, and when I was researching employee engagement, is that overall today, 85% of business leaders say it is no longer acceptable for companies to just make money. Companies must also impact society. With ArcelorMittal's global footprint and your engaged workforce of roughly 150,000 to 180,000 employees, how would you say that today learning is driving your societal impact?
I think we've started to find ways for learning to be not just something that's just internally focused on our organization, but there are some really interesting initiatives that have been happening in our communities in which we operate, and there's certainly a lot more potential to drive societal impact. When we have learning weeks, for example, every June in Mexico, they actually throw that open for their entire community on YouTube. So all of the stuff that they do becomes openly available, which is fabulous. There's a foundation that has been very active in our operations in Argentina that is talking about how to open up the learning platform that we have in content. And we're hoping to be able to, they're hoping to be able to partner to do that as well. We have some other, in all of our operations, we try to, we also have a variety of, community efforts, and education often features quite heavily. And most recently, we've been trying to, I've just had some conversations with our head of ESG, and I think that there are some really good ways to open up learning in different communities that we serve, building upon some, like in Mexico, they've also did an English language learning where they opened it up to the families and of our employees as well. So we've done a few things, and I think there's even more. I in particular just started to have conversations with our marketing folks about how we can do more to educate externally the role of green steel and the sustainability aspects of steel and how we're changing moving forward. So we've been doing some things, and I think that we're starting to see learning, especially with this external focus in the communities in which we operate. And I think that'll be really exciting. I have another project that I can't quite talk about, but I think it's going to be really exciting in coming years to see the very strong role that we are investing in education in many of the areas in which we operate.
Fantastic. Well, we look forward to hearing more about that.
The language programs we have, also some language programs we have, not only English but also other languages, is also helping a lot when we have people relocating, people who are in mobility. So it's not necessarily a high volume of people, but when they go to another country, they can benefit from many things around language and all other advantages, and that also can be sometimes provided to family members. So we try to not see just the inside, but also to have an open perspective to the outside and to the community in general.
Thank you, Vincent. I think everybody has learned quite a bit from what you've been able to share today. Thank you both very much for providing us with some success factors and overcoming the effects of the new never normal and then how to keep our employees engaged. For those of you who would like to continue this conversation, I would invite you to download our ebook that is designed to give you a short number of options around how to improve employee engagement and to reach out to our organization for a deeper conversation on what we can do for your organization. I wanted to maybe kind of open up, Stephen, the Q&A, and I know there's a number of questions in it.
Yes, no, definitely. We have plenty of time to get to these. So if you do have any questions for our speakers today, please provide those now in the Q&A box. But if you guys are ready, let's get right to it. This first one from Gretchen, it says, how do you manage the translation and its accuracy?
Oh, Gretchen, I think that's a perpetual pain point that we've been experiencing. And this year we've gone through quite a lengthy evaluation and trials of many tools. And the good news is that the price point and the effectiveness of machine translation has improved. So we'll be honest with you, we operate on a very lean budget. We don't have the opportunity to hire live translators for many of the things that we do, but we do when we do really big global events. We have, I think, Vincent, can we say that we've somehow hacked Microsoft Teams so that we can use OBS so that we still can produce an event and use the machine translation that's native in Teams for free? In Teams Live Events, you can translate in 6 different languages real time. It's not perfect, but it's a start. And then there's a few other tools that we now are able to do, and we've been trying to do more in terms of getting those captions, especially for that content that we create in-house. So it's accuracy, not as much as we would like, but we do default to English most of the time.
We also use our network of super users sometimes to help with translations on the learning portal when we want to do global campaigns. But it's often a heavy process, and we only do human translation for very strategic projects.
Awesome, awesome. Some great responses there. This next one is from Rachel. This one says, can you speak a bit to how you convince senior leaders and super users to take on these responsibilities and roles? What was the process like of getting folks initially into the idea and participating at a high level?
That one's for you, Stacey, I think.
Okay, well, those are 2 different groups. So senior leaders, very lucky. We sit on the 5th floor at corporate, so we see quite a few of them in person, and that's a very effective way of persuading people to do things. I think that in the first instance, we had our own support from our own, the head of group HR. He's one of the executive vice presidents, and he outreached on our behalf. We identified a few people who we thought would be open to the idea. And I would say after we did it about the first 2 or 3, would you say, Vincent? After that, people started to kind of, in one event, I actually had a senior leader call me and say, can I join this one, please? Because he really wanted to do it. And then it was amazing because we don't come with a preset agenda. We don't have, I know that some people might be at companies that are, especially if you're in North America, who are like, we have an open town hall with our CEO every week. And, that was not the environment that we were working with at that time. So I would say after about a year of doing these, even our CFO in May, we approached each leader, we give them full kind of editorial, if they want to do Q&A, great. If they don't, that's fine. If they want to pre-record stuff, okay, we'll try to do that. We want them to shine. We want them to be their most authentic self. So we try to work with them. We do a lot of pre-production and make them feel comfortable. And now, since the first few really actually came back and have been our own advertisement saying how much they enjoyed doing it and how much they thought it was valuable and impactful, now it's really empowering people to really go completely off script. The CFO, when we said, what would you like to do in yours? And he was like, let's just do an open town hall. And he allowed all questions, no editing, and that was amazing. So it's kind of opened up this kind of much more availability from the senior leaders. Now, regarding the super users, I would say to take on those responsibilities, you know what, as we have that phrase in English, necessity is the mother of invention. A lot of these people were having to get stuff done and needed to be able to use these tools to do it at scale. We had a backlog of a lot of training that should have happened face-to-face, and they really just needed to be able to execute and to do that. And I would say we led a little bit by example at the beginning, and then when people saw what was available, then how, and especially again, the tools that we have available are not really super duper time consuming anymore. I mean, it used to be that you had to have an instructional design degree in order to produce. That's no longer the case. We try to make it really approachable and something that with just a little bit of investment of your time, you can feel empowered to do the work. So it wasn't like and everything we do, everything. I see a couple of other questions about incentives or rewards. You know what? We don't really require change. That's not one of my personal mantra or the organization. We just try to inspire change. And where they saw a need, we offer that. And if they're wanted, we have some people who have, I think Vincent will nod and know who we're talking about, who have inspired us in return with how amazing they have been able to do these things. And some people who are still not very interested, and that's fine. They're not there yet.
That's a great response. So this kind of goes along with this question from Tiffany. But do the employees ever experience overtraining?
I think like all employees at the moment, there's a lot of demands on people's time. And again, none of what we do is mandatory. There is mandatory training at the kind of plant level that does exist. Obviously, health and safety, which is our #1 priority, and that sort of thing. The technical training that they need to stay skilled, absolutely mandatory. Time is baked into their schedules to allow for that. What we're doing is really trying to provide people opportunities to network and to grow, and none of it is mandated. Now, there has been support from certain segments of the business. Again, I guess we wouldn't take responsibility for it, but having those conversations with senior leaders in preparation for their sessions allows us to kind of get in there and advocate for learning being important. And, we hear that several of them have prioritized in their areas that, okay, Fridays are for learning, Friday afternoons. And so those policies vary from place to place, but I don't think that they are experiencing overtraining. I think that they're experiencing where they wish they had more time to invest in certain areas that they find interesting.
Great, that's awesome. Thank you so much. We do have a couple more, probably time for one or two. This one from Asha says, how do you promote upskilling within the organization?
Okay, gosh, anyone who knows me knows that I don't care for that term. Why don't I care for that term? Because I think it implies that the employee that they are right now isn't good enough and that they need something more. I guess if I had to use a term, I would replace it with future skilling. We want everyone to feel confident and confident that they will have the skills that they will need as work changes and as the world changes. So I really try to make it about making sure that we have the content aligned and that we're working really closely with the business, and that, again, that network of super users, and we have a learning network in addition to that, where we speak very closely to all of the leadership development folks, where we're constantly trying to drive opportunities for them to be very well aligned if it's in a functional area or in others, to understand not what they necessarily need to be successful today, but what will keep them relevant and engaged for tomorrow.
Awesome, thanks. We do have time just maybe to get some final thoughts from all the speakers here. Clement, Vincent, if you guys want to give anything, any last final thoughts to the audience before we head out for the evening?
Yeah, if I may just start with a kind of conclusion, I would say in whatever you do, try to experiment. I don't think there is any book where every tip is written. So you have to, hopefully, if you are in an environment which is allowing experimentation or experiments, that's good. So don't be afraid to make mistakes and try to see what people like. Be innovative as much as possible. And also detect people in your organization who are driving things. Don't spend too much time trying to move everyone at once. Some people go faster, some people are not. It's not the moment for them to innovate. So you may wait, but yeah, connect with the right people, find the drivers, and do great things, and hopefully great learning engagement will follow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would resonate on that and say, people crave human connections, especially now. Any kind of learning activities that can capture on that and connect people together are always going to be successful, and it should always create engagement. So thank you very much, Stacy and Vincent, for sharing all these wonderful lessons and best practices.
Thanks everyone for joining us. I've been reading with interest some of the wonderful things that other people have been sharing about their initiatives. I'd love to learn more, so hit me up on LinkedIn or with email, and we'd love to learn from you guys too.
Sure, feel free to connect, and if you have more questions that you could not ask today, feel free to ask them on LinkedIn, or you have our emails at home, so happy to discuss. And thank you very much for connecting.
Thank you. Yes, thank you again to Vincent, Stacy, and Clement for taking this time to present all this great information with us. I did just see something in the attendee chat there. So all registrants and attendees will receive a follow-up email that will include a link to the recording of the webinar. So be sure to check that out. Usually happens here within the next 24 hours. Once again, thank you to our panelists and speakers. I would also like to thank, of course, our sponsors, CrossKnowledge, for sponsoring today's event. Be sure to check out our next CLO webinar, this one taking place on Wednesday, November 9th, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, titled Becoming Creators of Talent and Not Just Consumers of Talent, Upskilling and Reskilling as a Way to Retain Great Talent. Once again, that's Wednesday, November 9th, 12 p.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. This concludes today's webcast. Stay safe, everyone. Have a great day.